we're pretty good at washing things, right? We wash our clothes, our homes, our bodies. But here's a thought. What about our minds? Today, we're diving into this really powerful idea of mental hygiene and why it might just be the most important cleanse of all. And our guide for this whole exploration is a fantastic book called Wash Your Mind by Haftam Mariah. We're going to unpack its core ideas on how to clear out all that mental negativity to find, a new level of clarity and peace in our day-to-day lives. The book kicks off with this incredibly simple but really profound question. We are so on top of our physical hygiene, but what about our mental hygiene? I mean, seriously, take a second and think about it. When was the last time you intentionally set out to clean up your thoughts? And that question leads us right to the main problem the book tackles, this concept he calls mental pollution. It's the reason why our minds can sometimes feel so heavy, so cluttered, and just foggy. Now, to really make this idea stick, the author gives us this perfect metaphor. He says that trying to live with negative thoughts is exactly like walking around with a stone in your shoe. Just think about that for a second, that tiny stone. At first, you barely notice it. It's just a small annoyance, maybe a little flicker of anger or a tiny seed of resentment. But if you keep walking, every single step becomes difficult, then painful, and pretty soon you can't think about anything else. It ruins the whole journey. So that's what the author means by mental pollution. It's this buildup of harmful thoughts, stress, anger, fear. It's like trying to see a reflection clearly in cloudy, muddy water. It's just not going to happen. A polluted mind really struggles to find wisdom or to feel any genuine peace. Okay, so if our minds are getting polluted, where is all this mental dirt actually coming from? Let's take a look at some of the most common sources. The book points to a few major culprits that I think we can all relate to. First, we're just bombarded by media and nonstop information. Then, you've got toxic conversations or relationships that just drain you. Fear and rumors, they spread like wildfire online and off. And maybe the biggest one of all, our own repeated negative thinking patterns that just wear these deep grooves into our minds. The author tells this really eye-opening story about visiting a place where basically one single TV channel was on everywhere. And he noticed that after a while, the repeated messages from that one source started to shape how everybody thought and spoke. It's such a powerful reminder that if we're not careful, if we don't use discernment, our minds just passively absorb whatever we're fed. All right, so we've got the problem and we know where it comes from. So what do we do about it? How do we actually start washing our minds? This is where the book gets super practical and, honestly, really hopeful. He lays out 4 really clear actions. First up is reflection, just taking the time to actually look at what you're thinking about. Next is forgiveness, which is all about letting go of that incredibly heavy burden of resentment. The third step, and this one is huge, is to guard your thoughts, to basically become a bouncer for your own mind. And finally, wish good for others. This is a powerful way to crowd out toxic stuff like jealousy and anger. And here's a super practical way to do that third step, guarding your thoughts. When a negative thought just pops into your head, don't just let it hang out. You've got to challenge it. You have to actively counter it with what's true. So if your mind says, "Oh, you failed before," you answer right back, "Yeah, and I learned from it. I can improve." It's all about retraining that internal conversation. Really? This whole practice boils down to the core principle captured in this quote. The big idea is to be intentional about where you put your focus. Instead of just letting your mind wander into negative territory, you actively choose what to think about, things that are true and good and admirable. So what's the payoff here? What actually happens when you start doing this on the regular? What does life feel like with a clean, renewed mind? Well, the benefits are pretty amazing. Now, what's so cool is that it's not like your problems just magically disappear. It's that your perception of them completely changes. Problems start to look smaller, more manageable. You start to notice opportunities that were hidden in plain sight. You just feel a deeper sense of peace. You make wiser decisions. And honestly, life just feels lighter, more joyful. This quote really drives home just how high the stakes are. The author calls the mind the main motor of life. And that's such a powerful image, right? You could lose a limb and still keep going. But if the mind is all clouded up with fear and anger, everything starts to crumble. It's the engine that powers your whole life. So, the million-dollar question is, how do we make this a real, lasting change, and not just something we try once? Well, it all comes down to making it a daily practice. Yeah, this isn't a one and done deal. You don't just wash your mind once and you're good for life. It's a daily discipline. It's just like brushing your teeth or taking a shower. It's about building a consistent habit of being aware and intentional with your thoughts. So I'll leave you with this final thought, a little challenge to take away from all this. Let's go back to that powerful metaphor of the stone in the shoe. What is the one mental stone, that one little piece of resentment or fear or negativity that you are going to choose to take out of your shoe today?